And we had kind of this open, trackless desert out here, which is really occupied by Bedouin tribes. And then we had this big trackless desert out here that was occupied by even less. So miles and miles of miles and miles is what we used to call it. Tikrit has really been the center of Saladin for about 30 years, the time that Saddam Hussein was in charge. Before that time, Samarra, which I talked about before, is where the Golden Mosque was that was blown up in 2006, was really the key city in Saladin province. And when we arrived, there was kind of a power struggle going on in the province between Samarra and Tikrit, because Samarra is a huge city, and it has more people, just that one city, than all of this north of it, the whole rest of the province. But they've really been the center of the insurgency. They had they had the bombing that destroyed the mosque, but that's really just kind of the biggest bang to happen out of there, really since the beginning of the war. That's been a hotbed of activity. And by 2008, 2009, they were just starting to get their legs under them, but they still had a lot of kind of former Al-Qaeda guys who had a lot of influence inside the tribes, inside the structure in the city. So the State Department helped them get their political act together and helped them get a candidate elected, and lo and behold, because they had more people than everybody else, they took the predominance of the provincial council and took the governorship. And it was really kind of like, it's kind of like if the Libertarians won the presidency. It's a group that has not really held power all of a sudden controlling the province. And it really had created a lot of issues. There was the provincial council had kind of the minority of old Tikrit guys that had run the province forever, had formed a coalition to fire the governor. The governor had refused to go. So when we showed up, there's this big power struggle going on. And it really ended up playing a big role as the year went on. When we showed up, we didn't think it was a big deal, but it turned out to be a really big deal. When we showed up, we kind of had the 20-meter targets. We had the problems right in front of us. And the first problem was really that we only had the unit that we were replacing, 3rd Battalion, 7th Field Artillery, never broken. They were leaving in 2 weeks. And so we show up, and in 2 weeks we have to learn everything that they've taken a year to learn. And as we're trying to learn from them, they're leaving. So this key knowledge every day is trickling out of Iraq. And that really was not just our problem. I think we didn't fight a 9-year war in Iraq. We fought 9 one-year wars in Iraq, because every year a new unit would come in, and they would get about 2 weeks with the unit they're replacing, and then they would spend 3 months trying to figure out what the heck was going on, and then they would about get their legs under them, have 6 good months of good running space, and then they would have 3 months of getting ready for the next unit to come. And in a lot of ways, it really made the war last a whole lot longer than it needed to. And we were really no exception. There were a lot of things that the unit we replaced knew that they left with. Not because they're bad Americans, they're great Americans, but there was not enough time. And so we had this problem going on. We also had the drawdown going on because, like I said, by August of 2010, we showed up in August 2009. By August 2010, 60,000 soldiers had to leave Iraq. And so every day, the U.S. Army got a little bit smaller, and our area got a little bit bigger. And we knew that they were trying to hold off because there was supposed to be a national election somewhere in early 2010, but we knew that as soon as that election was over, everybody was going to be leaving. So we knew that we really only had maybe 6 or 7 or 8 months to make a difference before everybody started leaving, and either we would leave with them or we would have such a big area that we wouldn't be able to really do anything except just keep track of what was going on in this huge area. The other issue that we had in our area, we thought it was a huge issue, and as the year went on, we figured out it wasn't that big an issue, was the Sons of Iraq. And you've probably heard of this before. Part of this changing of sides of the Sunnis from Al-Qaeda in Iraq to starting to help the U.S. Army was this movement called Al-Sawa, which means the awakening. It started in Al-Anbar, but it generally kind of spread out from there and made its way into Saladin province in about 2007, 2008. And initially it was an American program. We would pay them to help with security. They would help us find Al-Qaeda guys that go on operations with us, help us root out bad guys. But by 2009, there were no more Al-Qaeda guys. There was still an insurgency, and there were still little pockets of resistance. But all of the reason for Sons of Iraq to be there was no longer there. But now you've got in Saladin province 1,500 armed guys who are expecting a paycheck every month, and if they don't get their paycheck that month, things start to go boom because they used to be insurgents and they like to get paid. So imagine that. So this was a huge problem for the government of Iraq because we had handed the program over to them, and they didn't want, it's a Shia-led government. They don't want 1,500 armed Sunnis hanging out, pulling security in their province. So it was a constant tension, and we were trying to think of all these innovative ways to get them jobs, to kind of convince them to stop being Sons of Iraq and go do something else. And as it turned out, they had not quit the insurgency because we were paying them. They quit the insurgency because they were getting killed. And all the dumb ones were dead, and all the smart ones had realized that they should just wait for us to leave. If they're going to fight, they should wait for us to leave because they get shot when they fight around us. So it was more of a racket, a money-making scheme than it was really a security problem in the province. And then the last thing, the kind of our mantle, this is a joint headquarters here in Tikrit. I'll show you an outside shot in a minute. But one of our, kind of our primary mission there was to partner with the Iraqi security forces, enable them, teach them, train them, and do operations with them in the lead. The first thing we discovered when we showed up is that they were very, very capable, and they didn't really need our help. They liked our help because when we helped them, we brought all kinds of cool toys and all kinds of giveaways like fuel and ammunition.